we have Abhishek Vaidyanathan, and you are the general counsel of the NEAR Foundation.
Yes, I am.
Sure are. This is an ID check. If you could all give driver's license.
Do I? Yeah. License and identification.
License and identification.
I am above 21 years old.
Yes, fingerprint.
Actually. If I know you can't tell.
anybody getting some alcohol later. And we also have Calanthia Mei here. She's the co-founder of Massa AI.
Here.
Yeah, awesome. I want to thank the Blockchain Summit, obviously, for having us. I'm going to toss it to you guys in 1 second, but I love this topic because right now we're dealing with these two technologies, right? Like we have blockchain, we have AI, and that's particularly my specialty. And it's like, yeah, they have the potential to change the whole world. But what's really interesting is I think in some ways they already are changing the whole world, even beyond ways that we can imagine. So let's do a level set. Let's get right into it. I'm a journalist. Let's give the people what they came here for right off the top. How are AI and blockchain complementing each other right now, and how should we think about how they're going to be doing it in the near future?
Calanthia, why don't you go ahead? Well, yeah, happy to do so. I mean, I think the intersection is still playing out. I think, AI, a lot of core AI people don't take blockchain seriously. A lot of the DGen audience isn't necessarily in the AI space. But, as you say, they are deeply complementary. And some of the applications being built out right now. So, some of the ways that is the case, obviously, immutability, privacy, the ability to transact, are all aspects that, the future of AI is and actually much the present are going to use. So some examples, I mean, agents, right, which are transacting. How does an agent transact? Well, it can't do so with physical money, right? I think this is kind of right. It needs programmable money to be able to do so. And so programmatic money, i.e. stable coins, are the medium of choice for transacting, for AI, right? I just use one example. So that's kind of a more simple way. Another way is through privacy and privacy preserving technology, right? So, an example might be the ability to run inference in a trusted environment, right? So, I think it seems we're still having a couple tech issues. So I think those are two kind of key areas, right? I mean, with agent payments, inference, and the ability for agents to interact with each other are all powered, through scalable protocols. Finally, and this would probably be a nice segue for Calanthia is incentive networks. And so, you saw this with DeepIn, right? So there was a panel on DeepIn earlier, and kind of taking the DeepIn concept and using the same incentive networks for actually deploying and developing AI models. So this is what BitTensor is doing with their decentralized intelligence network, and you can see through the sort of proliferation of what they call subnets, very interesting AI models developing. So those are three kind of areas that I've described: programmable money, privacy preserving inference, and sort of agentic infrastructure, and then finally this decentralized intelligence network, all of which are examples of the intersection.
Yeah, I love the question when it comes to definitions. And when we think about AI, people normally just refer to the Metas of the world and the OpenAIs of the world. But model is only a slice of AI. If I were to break down AI into a few components, I would say let's start with compute. Compute powers AI models. And then we get into data. Data is fed into AI models. And then we get into the model and the inference layer, which makes intelligent decisions. And then lastly, we have the application layers, which includes AI agents that are interacting with our day-to-day user. In every single aspect of AI, we have great use cases for crypto. For example, data, which is what my company specializes in. Massa is trying to provide an easy and affordable way for all the AI developers to be able to get affordable, open, public good kind of data. That is really, really expensive to obtain. Not every single AI developer has hundreds of millions of dollars like the Metas, the Googles of the world. But how do you, as an AI developer, get data? Blockchain And on-chain networks like my company, Masa, and many others out there provide a very easy, permissionless, and accessible way for AI developers to get the access they need to data, to compute, to inference, and other resources that they need.
Yeah, one of the things, so I spend a lot of my time up on Capitol Hill. I talk to lawmakers. One of the things that they're really interested in, they kind of know the tech. We're gonna try a swap out here. How's that? Okay. Your mic is working. We can hear you. Lawmakers don't necessarily know the tech, but they are interested in the particular applications. And so we can talk about agentic AI, maybe a handful of folks that I talk to on a day-to-day basis, elected lawmakers know what that is, but they do understand the importance for health or for finance or for scientific progress. What are some of these application layer domains where you think this intersection between blockchain and AI will be particularly fruitful, maybe where that privacy does need to be or that public data good does need to be? Lay some of those out for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think this is something that NEAR, which is, General Counsel, the NEAR Foundation, NEAR is building through sort of decentralized machine learning is, the concept underlying this. And the basic idea is, who wants to give up their data for nothing? In fact, to be sold personalized ads that Google or whomever else profits from. I don't think that's a model for really the future. And I see some in the audience who are building some of the application layer sort of examples that you're referring to across, say, healthcare, right? So for delivery of confidential healthcare services, right? I mean, that's an area where data seepage and privacy becomes incredibly important. And so what NEAR has been working on and empowered by sort of recent advances in hardware is the ability to have what are called trusted execution environments. So an area where you can run inference with the sort of knowledge that data cannot be leaked from that enclave. And right, so I mean, I use healthcare as an example, but it doesn't just have to be healthcare. It can be really any kind of personalized services provision, right? If I want to buy products, right? At this point, all the knowledge about what I like to buy is owned by companies like Google and Amazon, and I don't get to profit from any of that. And in fact, they just use it to deliver services. So I think any kind of personalized, service provision is going to be another example of this. Obviously, something like healthcare, the privacy implications are quite clear, but really it applies to something as simple as, buying stuff. Really,
I do that.
I as do I. I mean, all the way, onwards. And so, can kind of dive into any of those use cases and would be curious, Calanthia, how you think.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest use cases for crypto and AI is really AI agents, specifically how you can have personalized AI agent as assistants in your daily life. So let me break it down a little bit. First of all, what is an AI agent? I'm sure everyone is familiar with AI bots. So think of AI agents as more intelligent version of AI bots that are not just, I give you a request, you complete the request directly, but instead, as an AI agent, I follow what we call chain of thoughts. You'll be able to enter a prompt, and based on the chain of thought, AI agent is able to execute not only one direct request, but also have a chain of thought and be able to execute a series of requests in a span of time. So that's AI agent. I firmly believe that in the future, every single human on planet Earth will have their own personal AI agent. So imagine yourself waking up in the morning, you talk to your AI agent, let's say, hey AI agent, what is my schedule of the day? Can you help me figure out how to get to point A to plan B? How should I get to the airport after this? Every single human being on planet Earth will have their own AI agent. And such personal information should be only stored in the most privacy preserving way, because you and I, we don't want our personal conversation with our agents getting leaked or getting listened by anyone else.
Yeah, and when you use a browser today, right, which is effectively the prototype version of, right, an agent, which you have to execute the commands on behalf of, right? So you go to a booking site, you put in where you're going, you choose the parameters for it, and you interact with that, in a bunch of different ways, right? It might be to watch movies that you like, it might be to book something, whatever. You, what you want, and what I think, the future is very quickly turning to is an agent that can interact on your behalf, doing those very tasks. And in fact, if Ilya Paulsukin, who's the founder of Near, has sort of developed this agent network through which you can actually execute these various actions, right? So, an example might be, instead of going through 50 different steps to go find a pair of headphones that you want from Amazon, you can use a discovery agent, for example, to say, hey, I want headphones between $5 and $50 that meet X criteria, and have that chain of thought, as that Calanthia referred to, that is executing that action on your behalf. And these are less perhaps serious examples where people might feel more comfortable. But if the question is, find me a psychiatrist for a particular mental illness that I think I'm having, you may not feel so comfortable about having that information seeped. And right now, that is exactly what's happening. In fact, people receive some pretty weird personalized ads based on information that might be very deeply uncomfortable to be shared. So, couldn't agree more.
Yeah, absolutely. We're here in Washington, D.C., and if folks are in from out of town, welcome. You picked exactly the right time to come. We have cherry blossom season. It's really fun here. But let's talk a little bit about regulation primarily, but also a little bit about legislation. What is the role that you see regulators and potentially legislators having in facilitating this virtuous cycle between blockchain and AI?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think right now we're still at an infancy stage. I think right now it's more of an education exercise on why this is really important, and it's at least the national security implications are pretty clear to regulators and policymakers. So, obviously DeepSeek, for example, which is the Chinese built open source model, which is quite powerful and quite useful. It is has some national security implications associated with it, including the fact that when you run it on the DeepSeek website, and this is not running it locally, but running it on the DeepSeek website, it will not answer a question, for example, about, is Xi Jinping a good leader? That is not a question that this model will answer. Equally, if you ask that question, that information that you have asked that question is being likely seeped to not only the creators of the model, but who knows, given that it's a Chinese-based entity that controls and deployed it, who knows where else that information is being seeped. So I think the national security concerns are quite clear, and that's primarily the perspective through which these issues are being considered now. I think in the coming really year or two, as policymakers continue to educate themselves on the promise of the technology, we'll see probably some initial attempts to legislate around the space and at least create some, I would kind of liken it to a bit of the safe harbor that you're seeing for tokens being discussed through the SEC, some kind of sort of open source preserving proposal that enables sort of innovation to flourish among this intersection of blockchain and AI in the U.S.
I think regulators have a huge role to play in the future of AI. But first, taking a step back, I invite everyone in the audience today to think about a future whereby every single one of us can build our own AI application or AI agent. You don't need to be an engineer by trade. You don't even need to know how to code. And that is really happening right now. If you go to Twitter and then search the words vibe coding, you can see a lot of people use technologies such as Cursor to create their own AI applications and AI agents. Those are all side projects. And very soon, they can help you make money as a side income. So taking a step forward, if we envision tens of millions of Americans having those AI side hustles, and we'll be able to have tens of millions of Americans as AI entrepreneurs of the future. Crypto provides critical infrastructure, no matter it's capital formation or providing data, compute, inference, compute power, etc., to power the next generation of AI entrepreneur. Regulators can be the first ones to really cultivate the future of AI entrepreneurship in America.
Yeah, or destroy it, which I certainly hope, and if anything, this administration has shown a willingness to not do that. So I'm very hopeful. But again, the reality is that the change in administration over the sort of 4-year cycles is a it's just quite honestly, it's a major risk to whatever regulatory landscape is created. And so I think what we hope for is some stability. There's certainly a willingness to engage. Obviously, the White House Crypto AI Advisory Council, chaired by David Sachs, is a perfect example of that. So, I'm cautiously optimistic.
Yeah, it's, being a subject of, as you said, national security conversations and relying on government to sort of rely on the people and sort of come down on these open environments, that can feel like a bit of a precarious position. And I always like to ask people, do they feel that is precarious for them, and that the government is going to want to close things down and have some control and have some regulation, or do they think that this will kind of be allowed to flourish?
Well, I mean, look, it's kind of hard to when there's like an open code repository that you can just run on your own machine, right? So I think that the cat's out of the bag. Like, this technology is available, people know how to use it. They are going to use it, and so I think one can try to take the EU approach, which is to overregulate and punish developers. And then there's variants within that, right? Where, for example, the French would like to benefit Mistral and their local players, and that's one way to go about it. The other is the traditionally American approach, which is to encourage the sort of the cream to rise to the cream of the crop to rise to the top, and I think that's obviously the best approach.
Yeah, I think one thing Abhishek just mentioned really struck a chord with me, which is AI will happen with or without regulators. Just like tokens are being launched and issued with or without regulators. We should be part of this because a lot of tax revenues are being generated in British Virgin Islands and Cayman Islands right now, not in the United States of America. Those are great opportunities for us to pay off our national debt, to really boost our economy and really cultivate the next generation of crypto-first AI entrepreneurs.
This is, pardon me if this is a little naive from when I covered crypto a little bit more a couple of years ago when it was in a slightly different situation. But, I've spoken to some developers who say, building on blockchain, there are really scale concerns, and we want to build an app that has a great network and can go out to lots of consumers, whether that's an AI app or something based on your phone. What are some of the limitations, and maybe scale is one of them, to this complementarity that we've been discussing?
Yeah, I mean, look, a shameless plug for Near for a second, because you kind of set it up for me. I mean, Near actually is a sharded network, and I mean the whole point of the network design of Near, which was kind of the Ethereum's original network design, is to be to be shardable and therefore scalable to handle sort of millions, billions of transactions, and so therefore be capable of use for the more intense possibilities. And indeed, there's a concept called dynamic resharding. The easiest way to describe this is if I have an app that has far more transaction volume, that a special shard can be created on the network to accommodate that. And this is sort of part of the product roadmap and development. The network has expanded the number of shards available and is scaling up with the increased usage. So look, maybe it's not scalability. I mean, I think that primary challenges are probably more regulatory, and then also just competition, right? Who's going to develop the best models? I mean, OpenAI today came out with O1, the new version of O1 Pro. I'd be curious to use it and tell you, but the amount of compute that's required for its most advanced model is just inherently very extremely expensive, and so it'll be. Let's see, the cost of of these models has gone down considerably over time, so I'm confident that we'll see the same for this this incredibly compute intensive model happen over time. But this battle over who has the best model will still remain. That said, if I'm, depending on what task I'm asking my agent to do, for example, I might not need the most powerful model. And so model selection kind of remains an important point. If I'm doing something stupid, maybe I don't need, right? If it's, give me a list of the top 10 movies that are kind of like this, that's not going to be as intensive as it's, solving a complex math problem, for example. So, you're going to have different models that are capable of accommodating those different use cases. And I think probably, model competition, is in sort of regulatory environment which we discuss are probably the primary things that I would think about.
Yeah, I think blockchain still has a ease of use problem for day-to-day consumer, to be honest. I'm not sure if everyone in the audience has heard of the recent Bybit hack, which was the biggest security incident in the crypto history, which led to multiple billions of dollars lost in a security incident. Even the CEO of Bybit and the most senior executive of one of the top 5 exchanges in the world could not detect whether it was a fake or a real message in the safe message that they need to sign in order to transfer this huge amount of $3 billion plus worth of tokens. This is scary. And this is directly leading to a lack of trust from day-to-day consumer. If we really want to realize the promise of crypto, which is ease of use, efficiency, in every single aspect, we really need to improve the usability of crypto. But I also have a solution, which is AI, because I really do think that AI agent is going to be the user interface between crypto and humans in the future. So I no longer need to understand a wallet message and having to sign a transaction before I want to execute a crypto transaction. Instead, I have a conversation in natural language with my AI agent directly. That could be through text message, through email, through keyboard, through any format that you wish so. I think AI agent is going to solve for the crypto challenge.
Yeah, I hope so. Unless you have malicious AI agents that are, injecting messages. But and by the way, the future is here, right? It's available now. So, you can check various applications. Here's one, it's called Bita Wallet, which is built on Near. You can interact with this in natural language. So if I say, hey, stake 5 Near, for example, that transaction can be completed through natural language. And if I want to say, hey, explain what this signature message says, which is the example Calanthia just gave, you can already do that. And it's not unique to Near, by the way. You can use the multi-chain, or rather the sort of multi-context protocol. So for those familiar with Anthropic and Claude, you can actually connect it with various crypto networks to be able to describe, hey, here's a transaction. Like, what is happening in this transaction? So I think, right, the future is here. Stuff is already being built, and it's only a matter of time. But actually, it was a really good addition. I think usability is remains a huge problem.
Take us down the stack a little bit, and you've both talked about the application layer, but also about compute and energy. What are some of the foremost considerations that we should be thinking about in marrying these two issues that are going to come up at the level of the chips, of the data centers, of energy, and of getting that quantity of compute that's needed for some of these, at least for some of those advanced AI applications we were talking about?
Yeah, I'm happy to chime in on that because we are really building at the frontier of decentralized AI infrastructure. Now that's a mouthful. So what does that mean in reality, right? Instead of needing to build massive amounts of AI data centers, every single one of us in the audience here today can contribute our personal device and turn that into a mini data center powering the future of AI application. Now that's really the beauty of a decentralized community, right? Because every single person, you'll be able to run a node or piece of local software on your local device. That hugely eliminates the scalability problem of AI, and hopefully that will power more AI in America.
Yeah, and I think this is again a unique thing that's powered by blockchains, right? I mean, otherwise traditionally this was a natural monopoly, right? In other words, it costs a lot of money, and one party or series of parties had to do it. And now you can kind of contribute resources. So compute is one area, another is in training, right? So you can have what's called federated training, and there's lots of examples of people who are starting to do this. Is it as good as one player pouring a crap ton of resources into doing it? maybe not yet, but these models are competitive and are increasingly powerful. So I think sort of unique ability for people to contribute compute, to contribute to model training, are definitely some examples. On the sort of I think the energy problems still remain, and I unfortunately don't have a really good answer to it. I think one area where blockchain may actually be beneficial to that, though, is just in the sort of DePIN space, right? And I don't know if that was sort of touched on in earlier panels, but you're seeing sort of early proliferation of projects dealing with energy, and the ability of people to kind of contribute to, much like the compute example, contribute to sort of decentralized grids, if you want to call it that. So contribute either excess energy or excess grid capacity, and so there's some projects that are daylight energy is one of them that is trying to to do this. And so I think that might prove to be one possible solution to the problem, although it remains to be seen.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it goes the other way too. There's a lot of talk about, or at least optimism, that AI can help us tackle some of these energy concerns. Well, we've gone through most of our half an hour journey together. I appreciate you all being here. But I always like to close by asking panelists for about a minute of thoughts on if we were having this panel again next year, if we're lucky enough to be invited back. They're not too mad about all this. And we were to gather together again. What do you think would be some of the new things that we will be discussing 12 months hence?
Yeah, it's kind of funny because last November I was speaking on a panel, and then I made a prediction that in 6 months it will be AI agents instead of all of us speaking on a panel. That is actually becoming reality because recently I attended a Twitter Spaces and it was moderated by an AI agent instead of real human being.
You can get rid of Mei.
But you know what? When repetitions can be completed by AI agents, what really matters in the future is human creativity and human relations. That's the reason why you are even more important in the future. So in a year, what are we going to talk about? I think a lot of things that we are talking about today will become reality in a year. That's my hope.
Take us home.
Yeah, I mean, I think the next immediate frontier will be agents that can make payments on your behalf. And, so to use an example, if I wanted to pay you for a bet that the two of us make, right? I'm, instead of me Venmoing you the money, I'm telling it, my personal AI assistant, send Ben 5 USDC, and memo line, you lost the bet around AI predictions. So I think, look, as I sort of first said, I think one of the key areas of interaction is, right, programmable money is really made for AI, and it's such a natural fit. And so I think you'll see, and there's already again early proliferation of projects that are building this, but I think you will see a much increased usage of assistance for paying for a variety of things, and also for, I think the last thing I would conclude on is operators. So right, we're kind of seeing still early phases. There was a company called Adept that was building a model that could operate your computer. But you can imagine, instead of, hey, I need to format this document in this particular way, being able to say in natural language to do that, and then to do that 50 times. And so again, human efficiency capacity will flourish considerably, and how that will tie into the blockchain, I think remains to be seen. But through the AI assistant example, I think quite clear you could imagine, right, an operator that could do a bunch of repetitive tasks that would otherwise be time consuming and boring. Say, hey, I got to pay 50 different people, and instead you're doing it through this natural language interface. So I'm looking forward to that, because I hate nothing more than boring repetitive tasks. Right? So.
Well, wonderful. Well,
frees up time to speak with you, man.
Thank you so much all for joining us, and how about a round of applause for these guys?
Thank you so much.